The Galactic Council chambers had never been this quiet. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vrex Dominion stared at the holographic display showing casualty reports from 17 different star systems. The numbers kept climbing every few minutes as rescue teams found more debris fields and lifeless worlds. 87 billion dead, whispered Council Speaker Morden, his usual composure completely shattered. 87 billion beings across our most advanced civilizations, and the humans responsible are sitting in a prison transport heading to Kepler Station. Zethkar's forearms trembled as he reached for his translation device. The humans had been in Galactic Council custody for exactly 72 hours, arrested after their unauthorized activation of something they called Project Pandora. None of the council members had understood what the humans meant when they kept repeating the same phrase over and over during their arrest. "You unleashed Earth." The phrase made no sense. Earth was a quarantined world in the Sol system, declared off-limits by every major galactic power after the initial contact surveys. The planet was listed as a Class 7 death world, unsuitable for any civilized species. Even the humans themselves had agreed to voluntary exile from their homeworld as part of their integration into galactic society. "Speaker Morden," Zethkar said, standing slowly from his hover seat, "perhaps we should review the humans' testimony one more time before we proceed with their trial." The massive view screen activated, showing 3 humans in standard prisoner restraints. The lead human, identified as Dr. Sarah Chen, looked directly into the camera with an expression Zethkar had never seen before. It wasn't fear or regret. It was something far more unsettling. "State your name and position for the record," came the voice of interrogator Veltos. "Dr. Sarah Chen, former director of xenobiology for the Human Colonial Administration." Former being the key word here, since there probably isn't going to be a human colonial administration much longer. "Explain your role in the unauthorized activation of the device you refer to as Project Pandora." Dr. Chen leaned back in her restraint chair, and Zethkar noticed something he had missed during the first viewing. The human was smiling. Not the nervous smile of someone trying to please their captors, but the calm smile of someone who knew something the rest of them didn't. Project Pandora wasn't a weapon, interrogator. It was a recall signal. A very, very loud recall signal broadcast on quantum frequencies that only one species in this galaxy can detect. "What species?" "Humans, but not us." Dr. Chen gestured to herself and her 2 companions. "We're the civilized ones, the ones who agreed to leave Earth behind and join your little galactic community. We learned your languages, adopted your customs, agreed to your rules about warfare and territorial expansion." Interrogator Veltos's voice carried a note of confusion that was unusual for his species. "Then who did your signal contact?" "The humans who stayed behind, the ones you declared too dangerous for galactic society. The ones who have spent the last 50 years wondering why their brothers and sisters never came home." The recording paused as Speaker Morden stopped the playback. "Continue to the next segment," he ordered. Dr. Chen appeared on screen again, this time speaking directly to the camera without any prompting from the interrogator. "You want to know what Earth is? Earth isn't just our homeworld. Earth is where evolution spent 4 billion years creating the most efficient killers in known space. Every creature on that planet fights to survive from the moment it's born until the moment it dies." She stood up despite her restraints, forcing the guards to step closer. "Humans aren't the apex predator on Earth. We're not even close. We're persistence hunters who learned to use tools because we were too weak to survive any other way. Do you know what that means?" The interrogator's silence stretched for several seconds. "It means we learned to win by never giving up. Ever. And the humans who stayed on Earth, they've had 50 years to prepare for this day. 50 years knowing that their family members were prisoners in a galaxy that considered them too dangerous to exist." The recording switched to the second human, a man identified as Captain Michael Rodriguez. "Earth doesn't just have humans on it anymore," he said calmly. "After we left, the ones who stayed behind made some new friends. Turns out there are other species in this galaxy who got tired of being told they were too dangerous for civilization." Zethkar felt his stomach clench. "What other species?" "The Kithara swarm mines that your people drove out of the vegan sectors. The surviving warlords from the Draconis Empire after your peacekeeping missions glassed their worlds. The deep space nomads who refused to follow your trade regulations. Earth became a refuge for everyone you decided didn't fit into your perfect galactic order. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward as far as his restraints would allow. And now they're coming, all of them, with 50 years of human military innovation backing them up. The third human, a woman identified as Engineer Lisa Park, spoke for the first time. The quantum signature we detected 3 days ago wasn't from one ship. It was from 47,000 ships, all broadcasting on frequencies that only Earth's modified quantum communicators can generate. They're not coming to rescue us. They're coming because we sent them a message. What message? The interrogator's voice had lost all its professional detachment. Engineer Park's smile was even more unsettling than Dr. Chen's. We told them that the galaxy enslaved us, that we were prisoners who needed rescue, that our children were being raised as second-class citizens in a society that considered their parents too violent to be free. The recording ended, leaving the council chambers in absolute silence. Zethkar looked around at his fellow representatives and saw his own terror reflected in their faces. "Speaker," he said quietly, "how long until the Earth fleet reaches the core worlds?" 6 days, Morden replied. "Maybe less if they're using the hyperspace corridors through the Magellan cluster." "And our combined military response. Every ship we have is already deployed, trying to evacuate civilian populations from the border systems. The Earth fleet isn't just coming straight for us. They're methodically destroying every Galactic Council installation they encounter, then broadcasting their demands on all frequencies." Zethkar didn't want to ask the next question, but he had to know. What demands? Speaker Morden activated a new recording, this one showing the bridge of what appeared to be a massive Earth vessel. The human standing at its center wore no uniform that any galactic database could identify, but every other human on the bridge deferred to him instantly. "My name is Admiral Marcus Webb," the human said, his voice carrying across space with crystal clarity. "I speak for the free worlds of the Sol Alliance, representing not just humanity but every species that has found refuge under Earth's protection." Admiral Webb stepped closer to the camera, and Zethkar could see scars across the human's face that spoke of decades of combat. 50 years ago, you told us that humans were too dangerous for civilized society. You were right, but you made one critical error in judgment." The camera pulled back to show the bridge's main display, revealing a tactical readout that made Zethkar's blood run cold. Thousands of ships, representing dozens of species that the Galactic Council had declared extinct or exile-bound. "You assumed that being dangerous was something we would grow out of. Instead, we spent 50 years getting better at it." Admiral Webb's smile was nothing like the diplomatic expressions the Council was used to seeing from humans. This was the smile of a predator who had cornered his prey. "Here are our terms. Every human held in galactic custody will be returned to Earth immediately. Every human colony that was established under Galactic Council oversight will be granted full independence. Every species that has found sanctuary in the Sol system will be recognized as sovereign entities with the right to reclaim their ancestral territories." The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. "You have 72 hours to begin compliance. For every hour you delay, we will liberate one more star system from your control. We're not here to conquer your territory. We're here to free our people and our allies from an empire that considers itself the arbitrator of civilization." The recording ended with Admiral Webb turning away from the camera to address his bridge crew. "Signal the fleet. Operation Homecoming begins now." Speaker Morden turned off the display and looked around the council chambers. "The Earth fleet has already destroyed our installations in the Kepler, Vanguard, and Centauri sectors. They're not taking prisoners, but they're also not targeting civilian populations. Every engagement follows the same pattern. They demand surrender, offer safe evacuation for non-combatants, then systematically destroy every piece of Galactic Council infrastructure." Zethkar stood slowly, his 4 arms shaking with the realization of what they had done. "We didn't unleash Earth," he said quietly. "We created it." "What do you mean?" 50 years ago, we took their most cooperative citizens and left their warriors behind. We gave those warriors 50 years to build alliances, develop new technologies, and plan for exactly this scenario. Zethkar moved to the chamber's main display, bringing up tactical assessments from the border systems. "Every report says the same thing. The Earth ships are using technology we've never seen before. Their weapons systems are built around principles that our scientists declared impossible. Their ships move through hyperspace using methods that shouldn't work according to galactic physics. He turned back to face the council. They didn't just survive on Earth, they thrived, and now they're coming home to collect their family members. Speaker Morden's communication device chimed with an incoming message. As he read it, his face went pale. The Earth fleet has just broadcasted new coordinates. They're not heading for the border systems anymore. Where are they going? Here to Galactic Central. All 47,000 ships are en route to our home system. Morden looked up from his device. Estimated arrival time, 4 days, 18 hours. The council chamber erupted in panicked voices as representatives began activating emergency communication channels to their home governments. But Zethkar remained motionless, staring at the tactical display showing the approaching Earth fleet. He understood now why the 3 human prisoners had been smiling during their interrogation. They weren't criminals facing punishment. They were soldiers who had successfully completed their mission. The signal they had sent hadn't been a cry for help. It had been a declaration of war. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the command center of the Earth vessel Indomitable, watching his tactical officers coordinate the largest military operation in human history. Around him, representatives from 17 different species worked alongside human crew members, their combined expertise creating strategies that no single civilization could have developed alone. Admiral called out Commander Sarah Reeves, his chief tactical officer. Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements from the Galactic Council's core worlds. Looks like they're pulling back every ship they have to defend their capital system. Webb nodded, studying the holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Council-controlled territories, while green indicators showed the steady advance of his Liberation fleet. What caught his attention wasn't the Council's military response, but the growing number of blue dots appearing throughout former Council space. "Ma'am," he addressed the Kithara Swarm Mind representative who occupied a specialized communication pod near his command chair. "Your people are detecting something I'm missing. What are those blue signatures?" The Kithara's response came through harmonic frequencies that the ship's computers translated into words. "Freedom signatures, Admiral Webb. 73 previously suppressed civilizations are broadcasting independence declarations. The Council's authority is collapsing faster than we anticipated." Webb smiled grimly. This was exactly what they had hoped would happen. For 50 years, the leadership on Earth had studied the Galactic Council's power structure, identifying its crucial weakness. The entire system depended on voluntary compliance backed by the threat of overwhelming force. But when that force was suddenly engaged elsewhere, the illusion of benevolent galactic government fell apart. "Commander Reeves, signal the Draconis contingent. I want their battle groups to begin liberation operations in the former Imperial territories. The Kithara swarms can coordinate support operations. Human fleets will continue toward Galactic Central as planned." "Aye, sir. What about the diplomatic channels? The Council has been broadcasting surrender negotiations for the past 6 hours." Webb turned to Dr. James Carter, Earth's chief xenopsychologist, and the man who had spent decades understanding how alien civilizations thought. "Doctor, your assessment of their diplomatic outreach." Dr. Carter pulled up communication logs on his personal display. "Classic manipulation tactics, Admiral. They're offering to discuss our demands while secretly repositioning their fleets for a massive counterattack. The linguistic analysis shows they're using specific terms designed to buy time rather than indicate genuine negotiation." "How much time are they trying to buy?" "Based on the fleet movements we're tracking, they need approximately 48 hours to concentrate their forces at Galactic Central. Their messages are structured to drag out negotiations for exactly that duration." Webb nodded. He had expected this response. "Open a channel to the entire fleet, all frequencies, including the emergency bands that civilian populations monitor." The communication officer, a young human named Lieutenant Chen who had been born in the outer colonies, established the connection. "Channel open, Admiral. You're broadcasting to approximately 4 billion vessels across 17 star systems." Webb stepped forward to address not just his fleet, but every being in the galaxy who was listening. "This is Admiral Webb of the Sol Alliance. I'm speaking to every civilian, every soldier, and every government official who can hear this transmission." He paused, knowing that translation algorithms across the galaxy were converting his words into thousands of different languages. "The Galactic Council has offered to negotiate our demands for human freedom. We reject these negotiations for one simple reason: freedom is not negotiable." The tactical display showed communication spikes as his words were rebroadcast across the galaxy. For 50 years, the Council has maintained peace through a simple formula: comply with their authority or face military consequences. Today, they face military consequences for their failure to comply with basic principles of justice. Webb gestured to the mixed species crew around him. "The beings standing beside me represent civilizations that your council declared too dangerous for membership. The Kithara, whose swarm intelligence was deemed incompatible with individual rights. The Draconis, whose warrior culture was labeled excessively aggressive. The Void Walkers, whose nomadic lifestyle violated territorial stability requirements." He stepped closer to the camera, his scarred face filling screens across the galaxy. "These civilizations didn't become extinct when you exiled them. They became allies. For 50 years, they shared their knowledge, their technology, and their determination to build something better than the system that rejected them." The communication officer signaled that response messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. Most were expressions of support from previously oppressed populations, but several came from Council member species questioning their government's actions. "The liberation of human colonies will continue as scheduled. Council military installations will be destroyed or captured, but we're not here to replace the Galactic Council with Sol Alliance authority." Webb's voice carried the weight of decisions made by billions of beings across dozens of worlds. "Every species that wishes independence will receive it. Every civilization that wants to rejoin the galactic community will be welcomed as equals. The age of imposed peace through superior firepower is ending. The age of cooperation between free peoples is beginning." Webb signaled for the transmission to end, then turned to his senior staff. "Status report on the liberation operations." Commander Reeves activated the main tactical display. "Kepler sector is completely clear of Council forces. The Draconis battle groups have successfully liberated their former throne worlds in the Andromedan Reach. Kithara swarms are establishing communication networks in 17 previously isolated systems. Casualties: minimal. The Council forces are withdrawing rather than engaging in hopeless battles. We've taken approximately 400 prisoners, all of whom have been treated according to standard humanitarian protocols." Dr. Carter looked up from his analysis station. "Admiral, we're receiving intelligence reports from human populations in Council territory. They're describing massive civil unrest in several core worlds as local populations demand answers about why humans were imprisoned." Webb studied the intelligence summaries flowing across his personal display. Protests on Centauri Prime, workers' strikes in the vegan industrial complex. Even some Council member species were publicly questioning the decision to classify humans as dangerous. "It appears that 50 years of propaganda about human violence wasn't as effective as the Council hoped," Dr. Carter continued. "Local populations who worked alongside human colonists are reporting that humans were among the most peaceful and productive citizens in their communities." Which means the Council's justification for human imprisonment is falling apart in real time. They classified an entire species as dangerous based on their homeworld's environmental conditions, not on actual human behavior in galactic society. Webb nodded. This was the foundation of their entire strategy. The Galactic Council had made their decision about humanity based on Earth's classification as a death world, not on any evidence that humans were actually dangerous to galactic civilization. When human colonists had proven to be model citizens for 50 years, that classification had become increasingly difficult to justify. "Admiral," called out the communications officer, "priority message from the Galactic Central System. It's being broadcast on all diplomatic frequencies." "Put it through." The main screen activated to show Speaker Morden of the Galactic Council, but his usual composure was completely gone. The being who had represented galactic authority for decades now looked frightened and desperate. "Admiral Webb, I am authorized to offer immediate release of all human prisoners and recognition of human colonial independence." In exchange, we request that your fleet halt its advance toward Galactic Central and agree to formal peace negotiations. Webb considered the offer for exactly 3 seconds. Decline. Signal to the speaker that our terms were clear. Immediate and unconditional release of all humans, recognition of Sol Alliance sovereignty, and acknowledgement of the independence of our allied species. Nothing less is acceptable. Sir, Commander Reeves said quietly, our intelligence suggests that the Council is preparing for a final battle at Galactic Central. Every ship they have is being recalled for a desperate defensive action. Let them come, Webb replied. For 50 years, they maintained power through the threat of overwhelming force. Time to show them what overwhelming force actually looks like. The tactical display updated with new information as long-range sensors detected the full scope of the Council's defensive preparations. Webb studied the data with the calm expression of someone who had been planning for this exact scenario for decades. Commander, signal the fleet. We advance to Galactic Central as scheduled. But first, I want to send one more message to the galaxy. The communications channel opened again, and Webb addressed the billions of beings who were watching the liberation of their galaxy unfold. To every civilization watching these events, the Sol Alliance is not here to conquer your worlds or impose our authority. We're here to end the system of imposed peace that has stifled the growth and freedom of countless species. He gestured to the tactical display showing the approaching battle. The Galactic Council claims they maintain peace through superior firepower. Tomorrow, they'll discover that true strength comes from free peoples working together toward common goals. Webb turned away from the camera to address his crew directly. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump to Galactic Central. Operation Homecoming enters its final phase in 18 hours. As the massive Earth fleet prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history, Admiral Webb allowed himself a moment to think about the humans still imprisoned in Council facilities. For 50 years, they had lived as second-class citizens in a galaxy that feared their potential for violence. Tomorrow, that same galaxy would learn why Earth had earned its reputation as a death world. Not because humans were naturally violent, but because humans never stopped fighting for their family. The battle for Galactic Central began at 8:47 Galactic Standard Time, when the first wave of Earth ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Fleet Admiral Kethmer of the Galactic Defense Force watched from his flagship Asterisk Eternal Justice as his tactical displays lit up with contact signatures that defied everything he thought he knew about space combat. Analysis, he barked to his intelligence officer, of Rex named Subcommander Yilton. Sir, the Earth fleet is larger than projected. We're detecting 47,216 individual ships, but they're not deployed in any formation our computers can recognize. Admiral Kethmer studied the tactical hologram floating above his command center. Instead of the neat battle lines favored by every galactic military, the Earth ships appeared to be arranged in chaotic clusters that moved independently while somehow maintaining perfect coordination. What's their estimated firepower? Unknown, sir. We can't identify their weapon systems. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. Kethmer had commanded Galactic Council forces for over 30 years, and he had never encountered an enemy fleet that his computers couldn't analyze. Every civilized species used variations of the same basic technologies: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and energy shields powered by fusion reactors. Standard tactics involved formations designed to maximize firepower while protecting supply lines and support vessels. Sir, called out his communications officer, the humans are transmitting on all frequencies. Put it through. Admiral Webb's face appeared on the main screen, but he wasn't speaking from the bridge of a command vessel. The background showed what appeared to be a massive hangar bay filled with small combat ships and thousands of humans in military gear. Fleet Admiral Kethmer, I presume? I'm Admiral Marcus Webb of the Sol Alliance Liberation Fleet. Before we begin this engagement, I want to make sure you understand exactly what you're facing. Webb gestured behind him to the organized chaos of humans preparing for battle. Every ship in my fleet was built in the Sol system using technologies developed by 17 different species working together. Every weapon system was designed by beings who spent 50 years preparing for this exact battle. The camera followed Webb as he walked through the hangar, past humans working alongside Kithara technicians and Draconis warriors. Your intelligence files classify humans as dangerous based on Earth's environmental conditions. You were right to be concerned, but you misunderstood the nature of the danger. Webb stopped in front of a small fighter craft that looked nothing like any ship in Galactic Council databases. Humans aren't dangerous because we're naturally violent. We're dangerous because we never stop adapting, and we never abandon our family. Admiral Kethmer watched as Webb climbed into the fighter's cockpit. Admiral, you're not commanding this battle from a secure flagship. Admiral Kethmer, on Earth, leaders fight alongside their people. Today you'll learn why that tradition makes us more effective than your command structure. Webb's voice came through the fighter's communication system as dozens of similar craft launched from hangar bays throughout the Earth fleet. Final chance for surrender, Webb continued as his fighter formed up with hundreds of others in attack formations that moved like flocks of hunting birds. Release our people, acknowledge our sovereignty, and this engagement ends without bloodshed. Admiral Kethmer looked around his command bridge at officers representing 8 different Council species, then at his tactical display showing nearly 6,000 Council warships positioned in perfect defensive formation. Admiral Webb, you're outnumbered 6-1. Our ships are larger, better armed, and crewed by beings with centuries of military experience. Surrender now, and we'll guarantee humane treatment for your crews. Webb's laugh carried across the communication channel. Admiral, you still don't understand. We're not outnumbered, you are. The tactical display suddenly exploded with new contacts as the Earthships began launching fighters, bombers, and assault craft that had been hidden inside what appeared to be transport vessels. Within minutes, the 47,000 Earthships had deployed nearly 200,000 smaller craft. Sir, Subcommander Yilton reported, his voice cracking with stress. We're detecting massive energy buildups throughout their fleet. Whatever weapons they're charging, they're unlike anything in our databases. Admiral Kethmer stared at his displays in growing horror. The Earth fleet wasn't just larger than his intelligence had predicted. It was organized around combat principles that no galactic military had ever used. Instead of a few large ships with heavy weapons, they had deployed swarms of smaller craft that moved with impossible coordination. All ships open fire, he commanded. Target their largest vessels first. The Council fleet unleashed a barrage of plasma fire and quantum torpedoes that would have destroyed any conventional battle formation. But the Earth ships didn't fight conventionally. They moved like living things, flowing around incoming fire while their own weapons systems activated. Sir, his weapons officer reported, direct hits on multiple Earth vessels, but they're not taking damage. Their shields are absorbing our weapons' fire without any visible effect. Impossible. No shield technology can be that effective against concentrated plasma bombardment. The tactical display showed the first wave of Earth fighters reaching the Council's outer defensive line. Instead of engaging the Council ships directly, the fighters began deploying what appeared to be some kind of technological plague. Council vessels started reporting system failures, communication blackouts, and complete loss of weapons control. Sir, the humans are using some kind of viral warfare against our computer systems. Ships throughout the fleet are reporting that their artificial intelligence networks are being compromised. Admiral Kethmer watched in disbelief as ship after ship in his fleet went dark. The humans weren't destroying Council vessels. They were capturing them intact by somehow taking control of their computer systems. Admiral, came a transmission from the Council ship Righteous Authority **. This is Captain Morphle. My ship's AI has been completely compromised. We're receiving orders in human languages that our computers are somehow treating as legitimate commands. Similar reports flooded in from across the fleet. The Earth fighters weren't just attacking. They were infecting Council ships with some kind of advanced computer virus that turned the ship's own systems against their crews. Sir, Subcommander Yilton said quietly, I'm analyzing the virus code that's attacking our systems. It's not just human technology. This appears to be a hybrid system using Kithara swarm intelligence algorithms, Draconis adaptive warfare protocols, and several other technologies I can't identify. Admiral Kethmer realized with growing horror that the humans hadn't just spent 50 years building ships and training soldiers. They had spent 50 years learning from every species the Galactic Council had exiled. creating military technologies that no single civilization could have developed alone. Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Webb. Webb's face reappeared on the main screen, but now he was speaking from the cockpit of his fighter as it maneuvered through the battle zone. Admiral Kethmer, as you can see, your ships are being captured rather than destroyed. Your crews are unharmed, but they no longer control their vessels. The tactical display confirmed Webb's words. Nearly half the Council fleet was now broadcasting Earth identification codes while their weapons powered down. The crews were alive and uninjured, but their ships had been completely taken over by the hybrid virus systems. This is your final opportunity to surrender, Webb continued. Every minute you continue fighting, more of your ships fall under our control. Soon you'll be commanding empty space while your own fleet fights for our cause. Admiral Kethmer looked around his bridge at officers who were staring at displays showing their own fleet turning against them. This wasn't a battle. It was a technological demonstration designed to prove the complete obsolescence of traditional galactic warfare. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different Council ships. Their captains are reporting that they can't regain control of their systems and are requesting permission to evacuate to remaining loyal vessels. The truth hit Admiral Kethmer like a physical blow. The humans hadn't come to fight the Galactic Council's military. They had come to demonstrate that the Council's military no longer existed as an independent force. Every ship that fell under Earth control was now part of the Sol Alliance fleet. Admiral Webb, Kethmer said slowly, what are your surrender terms? Complete and immediate release of all human prisoners. Recognition of Sol Alliance sovereignty over all human colonies. Acknowledgement of independence for all species currently allied with Earth. And establishment of a new galactic government based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced compliance. Admiral Kethmer studied his tactical display one more time. Of his original 6,000 ships, fewer than 800 still responded to Council commands. The rest were now flying under Earth authority, while their original crews sat helplessly at stations that no longer obeyed their orders. I don't have authority to agree to those terms. Then we'll discuss them with someone who does, Webb replied. Signal your government that the Sol Alliance fleet is taking control of the Galactic Central System. All Council authority is hereby suspended pending establishment of new governmental arrangements. The communication ended, leaving Admiral Kethmer alone with the wreckage of everything he had thought he understood about galactic power. The humans hadn't conquered the Council through superior firepower. They had simply made Council military force irrelevant through technologies that no galactic civilization had imagined possible. Sir, Subcommander Yilton said quietly, what are your orders? Admiral Kethmer looked at the tactical display showing Earth fighters moving freely through what had been the galaxy's most heavily defended system. Scattered reports were coming in from across Council space. Human populations were being released from detention facilities, colonial governments were declaring independence, and species that had been suppressed for decades were broadcasting their freedom to the galaxy. Signal the fleet, he said finally. All remaining Council forces are to stand down and comply with Sol Alliance directives. The Battle of Galactic Central is over. He turned away from the tactical display, unable to watch as the last symbols of Council authority winked out one by one. And send a message to the Council chambers. Tell them that Admiral Kethmer recommends immediate and unconditional acceptance of all human demands. Outside his flagship's viewports, Admiral Kethmer could see Earth ships taking position throughout the system that had been the center of galactic government for 3 centuries. Tomorrow, those same ships would begin the process of dismantling an empire and replacing it with something that the galaxy had never seen before, a civilization based on freedom rather than fear. 3 months after the Battle of Galactic Central, Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the halls of what had once been the Council's maximum security detention facility on Proxima Station. Her footsteps echoed in corridors that now housed the strangest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Dr. Chen, called a voice behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Zethkar of the former Vrex Dominion, the four-armed being who had become an unexpected ally during the transition negotiations. Ambassador, she replied, noting how different he looked without the formal robes of Council authority. How are the integration discussions proceeding? Better than anyone expected, worse than we had hoped, Zethkar said with what Sarah had learned was his species' equivalent of a rueful smile. The Andromeden Coalition wants to maintain their traditional territorial boundaries, but they're willing to accept the new non-aggression principles. The Centauri Federation is demanding reparations for 50 years of forced tribute payments to the Council. Sarah nodded, checking her personal display for updates from similar negotiations happening across 17 star systems. The dismantling of the Galactic Council had proven far more complex than anyone had anticipated, not because of military resistance, but because of the administrative nightmare of reorganizing a government that had controlled thousands of worlds for centuries. What about the Void Walker integration requests? Approved by acclamation. Turns out that 43 different species are eager to adopt nomadic lifestyle protocols once they learned that the Council's ban on inter-system migration was primarily designed to maintain population control. Sarah smiled. The Void Walkers had been one of the first species to join Earth's alliance, bringing with them technologies that allowed entire civilizations to migrate between star systems. Their knowledge had been crucial in developing the mobile shipyard networks that had given Earth's fleet its overwhelming technological advantage. "Dr. Chen," came another voice. She looked up to see Captain Michael Rodriguez approaching, but instead of a military uniform, he now wore the simple clothing of a colonial administrator. "Captain, or should I say Governor Rodriguez now?" "Still getting used to it myself," he admitted. "The new Kepler Colonial Assembly elected me to represent them in the transition government, but honestly, I'd rather be back on a ship." Sarah understood his discomfort. Many of the humans who had been imprisoned or restricted under Council authority were now finding themselves in leadership positions they had never wanted. The galaxy's various civilizations, having lost faith in imposed authority, were turning to the beings who had demonstrated the ability to work together across species lines. "How's the integration of Council personnel proceeding?" she asked. "That's complicated." Rodriguez pulled up a data pad showing personnel statistics. "About 60% of former Council military officers have requested to join the Sol Alliance Defense Force. Another 30% want to return to their home worlds and establish new local defense organizations. And the remaining 10%? They're having trouble accepting that the old system is really gone. Admiral Kethmer has been tremendously helpful in convincing former Council officers that cooperation with the new government serves everyone's interests, but some of them keep waiting for orders from an authority structure that no longer exists." Sarah could understand their confusion. For 3 centuries, the Galactic Council had provided stability through centralized control. The new system of voluntary cooperation between sovereign civilizations was theoretically more just, but it was also far more complicated to manage. "Dr. Chen," came a familiar harmonic voice. She turned to see the mobile communication unit that housed one of the Kithara swarm minds that served as liaison between individual species and collective intelligence networks. "Yes, harmony of purpose. Query regarding human integration protocols. The swarm minds have completed analysis of human colonial populations across 47 systems. Results indicate significant psychological adaptation patterns that require adjustment to transition planning." Sarah frowned. "What kind of adaptation patterns?" The Kithara's response came through a complex series of tonal frequencies that the translation system rendered as thoughtful uncertainty. Human populations separated from Earth for 50 years have developed cultural modifications that differentiate them from both Earth-native humans and from their pre-exile social patterns. "Can you be more specific?" "Colonial humans demonstrate enhanced cooperation instincts, reduced territorial aggression, and modified family structures that incorporate multi-species adoption patterns. These adaptations suggest successful integration into galactic society, contrary to Council classification of humans as inherently dangerous." Rodriguez looked up from his data pad. "That tracks with what we're seeing in the colonial integration meetings. A lot of the humans who were born in Council space don't want to emigrate to Earth. They want to stay in the colonies, but with full citizenship rights." Sarah nodded. This was one of the unexpected complications of liberation. The Sol Alliance had assumed that most human populations would want to return to Earth or join the Earth-based government. Instead, Many colonial humans had developed distinct cultural identities and wanted to maintain their own sovereign territories while cooperating with Earth as allies rather than as subjects. Harmony of purpose. What's the Swarm Mind's recommendation for colonial integration? Proposal. Establish human colonial territories as independent sovereign entities within Sol Alliance framework. Maintain Earth-native authority for species-level decisions while granting local autonomy for territorial governance. Like a confederation rather than an empire, Rodriguez mused. That might actually work better than trying to centralize everything through Earth. Sarah was about to respond when her communication device chimed with a priority message. "Excuse me," she said, accepting the call. Admiral Webb's face appeared on her personal display, but the background showed the conference chambers of what had once been the Galactic Council's central government complex. "Dr. Chen, I need you in the main assembly hall. We've received a formal request from an unexpected source." "What kind of request?" "The hegemony of distant suns wants to join the Sol Alliance." Sarah felt her stomach drop. The hegemony controlled nearly 1,000 star systems in the galaxy's outer rim, and they had remained neutral during the Liberation War despite having the military power to tip the balance either way. "Admiral, the hegemony has 10 times our population and military resources. If they join the alliance, they become the dominant partner, yes. That's why I need our best xenopsychologists to help evaluate their motivations." Sarah looked at Rodriguez and the Kithara liaison. "I have to go. Can you two continue the integration discussions without me?" "Of course," Rodriguez replied. "But Sarah, be careful. The hegemony didn't stay neutral out of cowardice. They stayed neutral because they were waiting to see who won." 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the assembly hall watching as hegemony representatives filed into the chamber. Their leader, a being called the First Among Equals, moved with the calm confidence of someone who commanded resources beyond most species' imagination. "Admiral Webb," the First Among Equals said in perfect galactic standard, "the hegemony of distant suns formally requests membership in the Sol Alliance." Webb studied the hegemony delegation with the expression Sarah had seen him use when analyzing enemy battle formations. "What are your reasons for requesting membership?" "Practical necessity. The collapse of the Galactic Council has created a power vacuum that will lead to chaos unless a new stabilizing force emerges. The Sol Alliance has demonstrated superior organizational capabilities and technological innovation." Sarah stepped forward. "First among equals, the Sol Alliance is not a replacement for the Galactic Council. We're a voluntary association of sovereign civilizations, not a governing empire." "Precisely why membership serves our interests," the alien replied. "The hegemony has no desire to impose authority on other civilizations, but we require assurance that trade routes and diplomatic protocols will remain stable." Admiral Webb activated the chamber's main display, showing the current political situation across the galaxy. "What exactly are you proposing?" "The hegemony offers our military resources to maintain peace along major trade routes, our administrative expertise to help establish interspecies diplomatic protocols, and our economic networks to facilitate voluntary cooperation between alliance members." Sarah studied the delegation carefully. The hegemony's offer was generous to the point of being suspicious. They were offering to provide services that would benefit everyone while asking for nothing more than membership in an organization that placed no restrictions on member autonomy. "What do you want in return?" she asked directly. The First Among Equals smiled in a way that somehow conveyed both amusement and respect. "Dr. Chen, the hegemony has observed human behavior for 50 years. You don't conquer civilizations, you liberate them. You don't impose your authority, you establish systems that benefit everyone." The alien gestured to the mixed species crews visible through the chamber's windows. "The Sol Alliance represents something unprecedented. A galactic power structure based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced compliance. The hegemony wants to be part of that system, not because we fear human military power, but because we admire human organizational principles." Admiral Webb exchanged glances with Sarah. "You're saying the hegemony wants to join because they like how we do things." "Admiral, for 3 centuries the hegemony maintained neutrality because every galactic power structure required member civilizations to surrender their sovereignty in exchange for protection. The Sol Alliance offers protection through cooperation while maintaining member autonomy. That is exactly what we have been waiting for. Sarah realized that the hegemony's request represented something extraordinary, validation that the principles Earth had fought for actually worked on a galactic scale. Other civilizations weren't joining the alliance because they feared human military power, but because they wanted to be part of a system based on cooperation rather than domination. First among equals, Admiral Webb said formally, the Sol Alliance welcomes the hegemony's application for membership. Integration discussions will begin immediately. As the hegemony delegation began formal membership protocols, Sarah reflected on how much had changed in 3 months. What had begun as a desperate rescue mission to free imprisoned humans had evolved into something none of them had anticipated: the foundation of a truly cooperative galactic civilization. The galaxy was learning that Earth's real weapon had never been superior firepower. It had been the simple recognition that free peoples working together could accomplish more than any empire built on fear and control. 1 year after the Liberation War ended, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching the most extraordinary sight in galactic history. Ships from over 200 different civilizations moved through the space around the station in perfect coordination, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old council system. "Dr. Chen," called a voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral Webb approaching, but he wore civilian clothes now. The transition government had officially ended 6 months ago, replaced by the elected representatives of 96 sovereign member civilizations. "Marcus," she said, using his first name as she had learned to do since they both left military service. "How did the vote go?" "Unanimous approval for the Deep Space Exploration Initiative. 237 civilizations are contributing resources, technology, or personnel." He joined her at the viewing portal, watching as massive construction ships assembled what would become the largest exploratory fleet ever organized. Even the species that haven't formally joined the alliance. Especially them. Turns out that when you offer to share exploration data freely instead of claiming territorial rights, everyone wants to participate. Sarah smiled. The Exploration Initiative represented everything the Sol Alliance had accomplished. Instead of one civilization claiming the right to explore and colonize new territories, hundreds of species were working together to expand galactic knowledge while sharing the benefits equally among all participants. "Dr. Chen," came the harmonic tones of harmony of purpose, the Kithara Swarm Mind representative who had become one of her closest colleagues. "Request for consultation regarding anomalous data patterns." "What kind of patterns?" "Analysis of galactic civilization development over the past year indicates acceleration beyond all historical precedents. Technology exchange between alliance members has produced innovations that individual species required centuries to develop independently." Sarah nodded. This was one of the unexpected benefits of the alliance system. When civilizations shared knowledge freely instead of guarding it as military secrets, technological development increased exponentially for everyone. "More specifically," the Kithara continued, "collaborative research programs have produced breakthroughs in quantum communication, biological adaptation, energy generation, and hyperspace navigation that exceed the combined knowledge of all participating species." Admiral Webb looked up from his personal display, where he had been reviewing exploration fleet assignments. "Are you saying that species working together are smarter than species working alone?" "Affirmative. Collective intelligence networks demonstrate emergence properties that individual intelligence cannot achieve. The Sol Alliance has accidentally created the most efficient knowledge development system in recorded galactic history." Sarah considered the implications. When the Liberation War began, their goal had been simple: free human prisoners and establish human sovereignty. But the cooperative principles they had used to organize their military campaign had evolved into something far more significant. "Harmony of purpose. What are the long-term projections for alliance development?" "Conservative estimates suggest that current technology acceleration will enable galactic civilization to achieve goals previously considered impossible within 50-year timeframes. Optimistic projections indicate potential for breakthrough discoveries, that could revolutionize fundamental understanding of physics, biology, and consciousness. Admiral Webb activated his communication device. "Patch me through to the Alliance Assembly. I think they need to hear this assessment." While Webb coordinated with the assembly, Sarah turned her attention to the activity outside the station. The sight still amazed her. Beings from species that had been enemies for centuries working side by side on projects that benefited everyone. Draconis warriors collaborated with peaceful Centauri engineers. Kithara swarm mines shared research with individualistic human scientists. Void Walker nomads provided transportation for species that had never left their home systems. "Dr. Chen," came a new voice. She turned to see Captain Rodriguez, though he now carried the title of Director of Colonial Integration Services. "Michael, how's the colonial integration proceeding?" "That's what I came to discuss. We've received a formal request from 43 different species to establish joint colonies using human integration protocols." Sarah raised her eyebrows. "Joint colonies?" "Mixed species settlements where different civilizations share resources, knowledge, and governance. Apparently, the success of human colonial populations has convinced other species that multi-species communities are more effective than single-species territories." Admiral Webb finished his communication and rejoined the conversation. "The Assembly wants to fast-track approval for the Joint Colony Initiative. They're calling it the most significant social development since the formation of the Alliance. Because it proves that cooperation works better than separation," Sarah mused. "Species that have been isolated for millennia are voluntarily choosing to live together." "Dr. Chen," the Kithara interjected, "additional data point requires consideration. Analysis of conflict resolution patterns within Alliance territories shows 94% reduction in interspecies disputes compared to pre-liberation baseline." Rodriguez pulled up statistics on his personal display. "That matches what we're seeing in colonial administration. When species work together toward common goals, the traditional sources of conflict become irrelevant." Sarah walked back to the viewing portal, watching as the exploration fleet continued taking shape. Ships designed by dozens of different species were being integrated into a unified command structure that somehow preserved the unique capabilities of each civilization while creating synergies that none could achieve alone. "Marcus," she said quietly, "do you think we understood what we were starting when we sent that recall signal?" Admiral Webb joined her at the portal. "Honestly, I thought we were starting a rescue mission that might escalate into a small war. I never imagined we were laying the foundation for a completely new form of galactic civilization." "The irony is that the Council was right about one thing," Rodriguez observed. "Humans really were too dangerous for their system, but not because we're violent, because we don't know how to give up on people." Sarah nodded. The Liberation War had succeeded not because of superior human military technology, but because humans had refused to abandon their imprisoned families and friends. That same stubborn loyalty had evolved into the cooperative principles that now governed an alliance spanning thousands of star systems. "Dr. Chen," the Kithara said, "incoming priority communication from the Exploration Fleet Command." Admiral Webb accepted the call, and the face of Fleet Commander Elena Vasquez appeared on their shared display. She was one of the humans who had been born in colonial space and had chosen to remain with the Exploration Initiative rather than emigrate to Earth. "Admiral Webb, Dr. Chen, we've received first contact signals from beyond the galactic rim. 3 different civilizations are requesting permission to send diplomatic representatives to Alliance space." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. 3 civilizations from outside the galaxy. "Yes, ma'am. They've been monitoring our communications for the past year and want to learn about the Alliance system. Apparently, news of a cooperative galactic government has spread to other galaxies." Admiral Webb looked at Sarah with an expression of amazement. "We've gone from liberating human colonies to attracting the attention of extragalactic civilizations in less than 2 years." "Commander Vasquez," Sarah said, "what are these civilizations offering in terms of initial contact protocols?" "Knowledge exchange, Dr. Chen. They want to share their experiences with interspecies cooperation and learn about our alliance structure. One of them specifically requested to study human integration methods." Sarah realized that they stood at another turning point. The Sol Alliance had begun as a desperate attempt to free imprisoned humans, evolved into a galactic cooperative government and was now becoming something unprecedented, a model for intergalactic civilization. Commander approved the first contact protocols and established communication links, but make sure all three civilizations understand that alliance membership requires voluntary commitment to cooperative principles. Understood, Dr. Chen. Beginning first contact procedures now. The communication ended, leaving the four beings standing in contemplative silence as they watched the exploration fleet prepare for humanity's first journey beyond the galactic rim. Harmony of purpose, Admiral Webb said finally. What are your swarm mind's projections for intergalactic cooperation? Unprecedented variables make accurate projection impossible, the Kithara replied. However, pattern analysis suggests that cooperative principles developed by the Sol Alliance may be applicable to intergalactic relations. Human methods of building trust through shared goals and mutual benefit appear to transcend species-specific limitations. Sarah laughed quietly. A year ago, we just wanted to rescue our people from prison. Now we're accidentally inventing intergalactic diplomacy. Dr. Chen, Rodriguez said with a smile, that's the most human thing about this entire situation. We solved one problem and inadvertently created solutions for problems we didn't know existed. Admiral Webb activated the station's communication system to address the hundreds of ships surrounding New Geneva Station. Attention, all Alliance vessels. This is Admiral Webb with a message for every being contributing to the exploration initiative. His voice carried across space to crews representing hundreds of different species. 1 year ago, we fought a war to free our imprisoned family members. Today, we're preparing to make contact with civilizations from other galaxies. We've discovered that the same principles that free people from oppression can also unite them in common cause. Sarah watched as ships throughout the system acknowledged Webb's transmission with synchronized light displays, each species contributing their own traditional signals of unity and cooperation. The exploration of intergalactic space begins not as conquest or expansion, but as an invitation. We're offering other galaxies the same thing we offered our own, the chance to work together as equals toward goals that benefit everyone. As the transmission ended, Sarah reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. The question, "You unleashed Earth," had been asked in fear by beings who thought they understood what humanity represented. Now the galaxy was learning the real answer. Earth hadn't been unleashed as a weapon of destruction. Earth had been unleashed as a catalyst for cooperation, freedom, and the unlimited potential that emerged when different peoples chose to work together rather than against each other. The war was over. The real adventure was just beginning.